Tonight, new reports coming in of an Imperial Star Destroyer on Kessel. We look into this presumed drug raid operation to get the details.
And the droid's rights debate. Do these lifeless and soulless machines need a voice their sentient organic masters can't provide for them? Most citizens agree. Not in my sector. We get the Rhodian on the streets point of view. Here at 11.
Welcome back, galactic citizens, to another episode of Hoth Topics, a Star Wars podcast. I am a humble moof milker, Ian. Joining me this week is Imperial recruiter John and a big shot gangster, Mike.
That's me.
Mike, welcome back to the podcast.
Mike, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we got to talking about Solo last time you were on.
Right.
And kind of our expectations for the movie and where we wanted it to go and the general excitement level for it. And we just got back from seeing the film. And we have some catch-up to do on those opinions, looking back and seeing what we thought and comparing that to what we just saw. So we recorded a little bit of Solo pre-discussion, reminder discussion. That makes sense, right?
Totally. I got
a little reminder discussion before we saw the film about all the things that we talked about in our main episode. And we're going to play that now and then join back with everybody to get their thoughts on the movie. Gentlemen, Solo, a Star Wars story, is upon us. Very soon, it'll be screening. We are going to go see it shortly. What are you looking forward to? What do you want to see? And what do you hope they steer away from? John, go.
As with every Star Wars movie that has come out since the Disney acquisition, I'm going to go into it prepared for it to be terrible. So if it's anything other than that, they have successfully made a Star Wars to me.
That's fair enough. I didn't really get that opinion, and then a couple movies ago, I kind of started following that principle, and it weirdly it works.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of tired of the you either are 100% for something or 100% against them.
Yeah.
Against something mentality we have in our culture at the moment.
Yeah.
And so I go in expecting the worst, and anything other than the worst is successful.
It's okay for things to just be all right. Mm-hmm. Mike, what are you looking forward to in Solo? What do you want them to steer away from?
I'm mostly looking forward to new Star Wars content happening in front of me and then seeing it. The content of it is bonus material, but I'm excited for something new within Star Wars, a new story, a new kind of vision and idea. So whatever it is they got for me, I'm ready for, and I'm ready to kind of take that head on.
I'm looking forward to seeing something even more different than what we've already gotten. So I think that Rogue One was kind of a test run for that, and Last Jedi ended up being, depending on how you look at it, a successful or unsuccessful experiment in doing things differently. But I think that with Solo, this is going to be the starting point of not everything needs to follow the same formula, and we'll get some of the same elements, but we'll get some of those different elements and start expanding from there. So that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing. And I'm looking forward to seeing ideas that are being brought back into a Star Wars movie that maybe didn't originate in a Star Wars movie. Like we talked about the Imperial Army kind of potentially being connected in this one, and with the Mud Troopers, but just some those ideas in general. But honestly, I'm just excited to see it. At this point, a couple non-spoiler reviews have come out. I've caught a few glances, and I'm hearing, everything from it's okay to it's great. And as long as it stays within that margin, I think we're going to be fine. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Mike, I'm not sure if it was you that said it, or maybe I've just picked this up since we recorded that episode.
Sure.
The one thing that you or whoever it was looking forward to was a Star Wars movie that didn't have a galactic impact. Maybe that was me.
Yeah, that was. I remember saying that in the last one I was at.
It was definitely something we all agreed on.
I'm super excited about a story that doesn't weigh on the galactic impact, the force of the universe and the galaxy and everything that has to do with it. I'm excited for a linear story that you're able to get a little bit more character progression and a little bit more view of the different technology and the different things around you, as opposed to kind of thinking bigger in that sense. So I'm excited to be able to get a little bit more into the characters, a little bit more into kind of the smaller details, because you don't have to look above and beyond to look at, what the general
the big picture idea.
Big picture,
yeah, I agree with that. I think it's because the rest of the story is already written. We know what happens to Han Solo, so seeing this part of his life,
maybe they'll do something brave and kill him off.
I don't see how that works. Trying to be the optimistic here person, maybe they could do something brave.
They could do a Star Trek J.J. Abrams thing and introduce another time travel element that will create a whole new timeline for these spin-off films to take place in.
Ian, how do you feel about that?
I have trouble with time travel. Time should be a circle in which you stay perfectly still. Yes.
Like the prophets in the Celestial Temple in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, reference. I totally understand.
Yeah, I got that one too. Thank you.
Yes,
you're welcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're not looking forward to?
I really want if there's one thing that I don't want them to do, is I don't want them to end the movie on Han being the hero. Even if he has a heroic character arc, I want him to at least show signs of being the smuggler that we know he is at the beginning of A New Hope. I want those characters to connect, or at least I want to start seeing that transformation happen by the end of the film. If he wants to be a good guy who just gets caught up in, a bad situation and slowly starts to devolve, that's a story I can get behind. If he's just, a paramount good guy till the end of the film and then something terrible happens, that's a story I can get behind. But the important element is that by the end of this film, I want to see glimmers of the Han Solo that we saw in A New Hope. You guys, anything in particular you want them to try to avoid, maybe?
I think you kind of already did with the...
Yeah, I don't like Han Solo, and I would hope that they would highlight some of the other people and really put a lot of effort into building the world around Han Solo, because I like the world around Han Solo in the other movies, and so I want to see what those other characters look like with a new character like the one that Emilia Clarke's playing,
Kira,
and with the already established ones with like Lando. I want to see what that world looks like around him, and so as long as they build that, and I think they will, like from what I've seen out of the trailers, and I expect them to build up all those other characters. I just don't want it to be just the Han Solo story featuring Han Solo and then he does everything.
Yeah.
As long as it's not that, then I'm excited for it.
Awesome. John?
I'm just hoping that they don't shoehorn a galactic doomsday into this somehow.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we have to go steal this spice so that we can stop the core planets from exploding again.
Right. Just keep it small scale, down to earth. I agree with all of that. I believe other character development is important. Keeping it small scale is important, and making sure the character connects with what we know him as is also an important thing. So I say let's go find out.
Huzzah!
Huzzah!
Huzzah! This is the cut point, and then we'll go see the movie and come back and talk about it more.
You shouldn't make songs like that, because I'm gonna leave them in.
I'm fine with it. I wouldn't sing if I wasn't fine with it. I say other stupid things that, like I'm doing now, that you're gonna leave in, and I'm shooting myself in the foot, so I should stop talking, but now it's like a thing, and I don't know how to end it. So this is the real cut point where we're gonna go see the movie. Please cut. So we just re-listened to that as well, and I don't know about you guys, but listening back to what I had thought pre-movie and comparing it to what we saw in the actual Solo film, there were a couple points where I was like, yeah, that happened, and then there were a couple points where I was like, that did not go the way I expected. But overall, I felt like it was a good fun time. John, you and I have both seen it twice at this point.
Yes.
And Mike,
true.
This was your first time seeing it.
Correct.
My opinion about the film overall is that it was just a good, fun Star Wars movie. Like, I enjoyed it. I worried that I wasn't going to have as much fun with it the second time I saw it. I still really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to coming back to this one in the future. It's probably not going to make the top of my lists going forward, but it's certainly not going to be at the bottom. So that was my overall impression of the film. John, how about yourself?
I did not hate it, so therefore I enjoyed it. According to how the internet tells me I must rate things.
And you must listen to the internet.
Yes,
right.
Internet is truth, internet is love.
Right.
But going off of what you said in your expectations, basically it was, if it wasn't terrible, you were gonna enjoy it. So that seems to match up well with that prediction. How about yourself, Mike?
I had a lot of fun watching it, just like the two of you, but I think I wasn't a big fan of the story in general, but I had a lot of fun and enjoyed a lot of singular moments within the movie.
Okay, that's fair enough. Do you think that this movie affected your opinion of Han Solo as a character at all? Because I remember beforehand we had talked about how he really wasn't one of your favorite characters in Star Wars. Yeah,
I still don't like the guy, but I enjoyed the movie that he was in and the characters that were around him, so I didn't hate the movie because it was a Han Solo movie, so I guess, they did a lot of things outside of him that really made it enjoyable for me, so that's good.
Absolutely. John, any other points about maybe Han Solo's character in this film and how he was portrayed and seen, and comparing that to his lifespan in Star Wars, I guess?
As a character, or just...
I kind of went into the character bit just because that was a point that Mike had made earlier, that he wasn't one of his favorite characters. I wanted to know if he got anything more out of the character.
In the preview show, Mike, you'd mentioned that, and just now, that you weren't a big fan of the character. Mm-hmm. And I believe we all agreed that we had to come out of that movie, or we wanted to at least come out of that movie feeling like we weren't sure if Han would join the Rebels. I think we all wanted him to, still be a scoundrel and sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm still kind of on the fence on if they completed that, because he did help out people in need, but he also did it for himself.
Right.
Sort of.
Yeah, we kind of got those glimmers, but we didn't necessarily... I don't think they fulfilled it to the point that it could have been. And they did that for a particular reason. But before I say anything else, John, I think it is time to put up the spoiler notification, because we are going to go deep into Solo as a movie. If you don't want to know anything about the film, if you haven't seen it yet, if all you wanted to know was whether or not we liked it, didn't like it, you need to stop listening right now. Spoilers ahead, people. Spoilers ahead. Let's kind of get into our favorite moments of the movie. Mike, you mentioned that you had, you like some very specific moments.
Yeah, I think the L3 droid really was a home run for me. Everything that she was about and all of the dialogue between her and Amelia Clark on the ship was phenomenal. Yeah, everything about that droid and the lines that she had in there was a lot of fun. I think Lando with Donald Glover was a really good character. I think he did a really good job with that role. In the kind of limited amount of time that he had. I think it would have been nice to have a little bit more with him, but he came in halfway through, and then he wasn't really involved in the quest, so he just kind of sat on the ship. So we didn't get anything but a couple lines after they cut back to him on the ship. So, I mean, for someone as talented as that, I would have liked to seen a little bit more, but I understand that he wasn't really a part of the quest, so it makes sense that he wasn't. But so yeah, everything about him and his droid were a lot of fun for me. I think the actors really did a good job with what they were given. Amelia Clark was a really cool character that I didn't see where she was going from the beginning, and then there was just so many different times when I still couldn't figure her out, and then by the end you kind of see that that whole scene with Darth Maul and that stuff. So it was a lot of fun to see her character, and it was the one that I didn't expect to do X, and she just kind of always eluded me in what I was expecting from her. So that was really good on the writer's part for her character, I thought. Outside of that, it had the really cool moments where the Millennium Falcon was shown and different things were shown, which was really cool. I thought some of the times when they cut into music, like the classic Star Wars music, when you saw classic Star Wars things happen, like with the Millennium Falcon, when Amelia Clark gave Han Solo's character his dice back, you heard just a couple little notes of classic Star Wars music. That was really cool. I thought when they mixed that in. So yeah, some very cool moments that I really appreciated outside of the big picture storyline.
So you had a good feeling for some of those nostalgia moments in the film. That's good. I agree with you. I think that a lot of those moments, what we would probably categorize as fan service moments, were, with the exception of one in particular, I don't think there was any one fan service moment that was like too out of place or out of touch with the rest of the film. Like anything with the Falcon and just with some of the lines that are said by Han and Chewie, like and Lando too. There's that part at the end where Lando says to Han, "I hate you," and he just goes, "I know." Like it's a fun little callback, right. But it's not overreaching.
Yeah.
I like the whole Mimban sequence.
Mm-hmm. That was one you were really looking forward to.
Yeah, solely because I want to build one of those Mud Trooper costumes. I think they're awesome. Mostly because it kind of brings back into canon the Imperial Troopers. I like that you never knew who they were fighting. I kind of made Han's reaction to the officer, like, what are we doing here? Like, make more sense. Like, we don't know who they're fighting. He doesn't know who they're fighting. Why are they there? I like that there was a Imperial officer commissar running around encouraging his men to go forward and then blew up immediately. That's good. Seems to be the standard role of commissars in all World War II movies.
Fair enough. What about those little fan service moments dotted throughout? You and I had a big discussion on the range that those can go through.
I'm still not sure on a lot of them, because there were a ton in there that if you didn't read any of the old novels, if you're not caught up on all of your expanded universe and other media, there's a lot of references dropped that you want to get.
I'm right here, John.
They might. Yeah. There's a lot in there, like when Kira drops the Chinos Terakasi. When we went to go see it, and the guy next to me were super stoked on that because that's a incredibly terrible video game reference that was dropped. And I like that, but there was sometimes when characters would say things that you would know from other Star Wars movies. It's not that they didn't feel out of place or shoved in, they just kind of felt awkward to me.
Okay.
Like with stormtroopers in the Corellian spaceport, just like constantly saying, "Move along," which is like what the first thing we hear them saying, or not on Tatooine. I don't know if that's a reference or just like standard protocol to get people moving.
Right.
So like I can't really be upset with that. And there was a couple other lines like that where one could argue that it was a fan service thing, but it could also just be people say words in galaxies. So
people say words in galaxies. You heard it here first.
I did enjoy all the ton of items in Dryden Voss's office or whatever that is, where they're fighting at the end.
Penthouse, maybe?
Yeah, probably Penthouse. There were a ton of references to the old EU big old crystal skull from one of Han Solo's adventure novels. Also, the fertility idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark is in there. And there's like a bunch of these like random things shoved in there that you wouldn't know. And like I was saying with the other fan service comment just a few minutes ago.
Yeah,
like those ones I enjoyed, but then there's some I didn't enjoy, and I don't know. I'm still confused about all of them.
How did you guys feel about the Imperial March in a major key being the like official recruitment sound in the recruitment center? They're just blasting it and showing propaganda for the Empire.
Well, it was. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, you go ahead.
No, you hang up.
Okay, I hung up.
I don't know if you noticed this, Ian, but it's the Imperial March that they played in Star Wars Rebels.
I thought it was slightly different.
It might have been. It was really drowned out by the sound of a busy spaceport.
Okay, that's fair.
I enjoyed that there's Imperial recruitment ads, just because, I want them playing constantly.
Those propaganda posters they had hanging up were pretty rad.
Well, that was one thing I did want to do is when they're racing through Corellia's, freeze frame that movie just to see all the graffitis that's sprayed on the wall all over the place.
Oh yeah, that'll be fun.
See what the nonsense is.
How about you, Mike?
I'm for it.
For it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other big moments, you guys? That really. What about we see the Kessel Run in this movie? The fabled Kessel Run. We've been hearing about it for 30 years. So, how did you like the way it was presented? Now, Mike, you're not super familiar with all the EU stuff.
Yes.
So, I don't know how much you knew about the Kessel Run pre this movie.
Uh-huh.
But what was your take on it?
It was fun space exploration and taking us through the galaxies. I think the jokes about it and like the references about it hit me more than the actual space travel did. Like when they're him and Chewie and Lando are all on the beach and say you got to round down to make it 12 parsecs. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that line.
You and the guy next to you in the theater, you were both like, ha!
Yeah, that was good. That guy really enjoyed it though. But yeah, it was a fun space exploration little moment. So I mean, it's nothing more than that. It was a lot of fun for me.
Now, John, you are more familiar with the origins of the Kessel Run.
I grew up with thinking that Kessel was a potato-shaped asteroid, like planetoid asteroid, which was solely because of the Star Wars card game, where the location for Kessel was a potato-shaped asteroid planetoid sort of thing. Asteroid planetoid is a fun thing to say.
Should be a song.
I did like their interpretation of the Maw cluster, which in the EU is what's around Kessel and Admiral Dalla's research station that is I highly doubt is anywhere near anything canon anymore. Where it was just a mess to navigate, and that the reason you couldn't get to Kessel that quickly was because you had to navigate a nebula full of black holes. They threw in a black hole in there for good measure that was the Maw, but I did like that they had to navigate this weird smoky passageway to get to Kessel, which helps to realize the legend of like why Kessel's so hard to get to. You can't just jump to Kessel and jump back.
We got a little glimpse of another space-dwelling species in the form of a giant multi-eyed tentacle beast living in the maelstrom on the Kessel Run. That thing just screamed H.P. Lovecraft at me with all the many eyes and the tentacles. And it kind of, one thing, this is completely irrelevant, but it looked to me a little bit like Reaper from Mass Effect. Kind of had that same head shape going on at the very end.
You're looking at the wrong person.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's for.
If he was looking at me, it would still be the wrong person.
It's for other people. It's just, but it was kind of fun. No, I really enjoyed the whole Kessel Run aspect. It was again, like I'm going to use the word fun a lot in the description of this movie, but it just was fun, and it was kind of an inventive way to get a new sort of space travel segment in Star Wars, because we've seen them navigating the asteroid fields before, and we've seen them doing kind of space battle segments. But this was cool because it was a puzzle as well as a challenge. You know, it wasn't just straightforward, like rely entirely on your ability to steer the ship. Like, a lot of different elements had to come together to help everybody get through this, and it wasn't solely on Han. Like, without Chewbacca's co-piloting skills, wouldn't have made it out of there. Without L3's navigational charts,
Without her brain.
yeah, without her brain
Without her
being
corpse.
downloaded into the Falcon, that
Without Kira getting out of the way for Chewbacca to sit down and actually do his job.
yeah, I mean, you don't know what you're doing, so why sit there in the first place? Because she has that moment where Han barks orders at her, and she's just like, "Yeah, that sounds like a great plan," and just like
sits there.
doesn't do anything. Poor Lando. The ship gets wrecked at the end. We're jumping a little bit ahead of ourselves here, I guess, in chronological order here. So
You have done that yourself.
I absolutely have done that
Obi-Wan's
myself.
quote, Mike, that's for you.
And it is an accurate quote in this particular instance. So when we let's go back to the beginning here. We open on Corellia, and we see an even younger than young Han going through his hard life on the streets. What did you guys think of the portrayal of Corellia and its sort of the lifestyle that's led there?
I like how dark they started out the movie. I thought that, you know, you knew it was going to be Star Wars eventually. You knew you get space, and you were going to get really bright scenes, but it started off dark and in, you know, the sewers and, you know, kind of the alleyways. And I thought that was really cool because, you know, there's a movie about a smuggler and a good bad guy, whatever you want to call him. I thought that set a really good precedent in starting it off really dark and really closed off, and then they just kind of expanded it from there. I thought that was a really cool touch.
Cool.
Yeah, I also liked how like grungy the shipyards were. The way that they designed the city that they were in, it reminded me a lot of Centerpoint Station, which is a ancient space station that orbits Corellia in the old EU. It's this incredibly advanced technology which just has a bunch of basically refugees that turned it into a giant slum in space. And so, yeah, I got that feel from it. The one thing that I really thought was cool was they started it with this, like, kind of hot rod chase. And I think they did that to kind of reflect American Graffiti, another vehicle Han Solo was in, or Harrison Ford was in. You guys get it?
Yep.
Vehicle. So it's like a car or some sort of way to promote a person sort of thing.
Yeah, I get you.
You got
I'm
it?
following.
Okay,
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
So I like
took
that,
English.
I like that they portrayed, or they had Alden portray Harrison as Han Solo as his character from American Graffiti. And I kind of felt like they did that throughout the movie, where they had him play other Harrison Ford characters that we all know in a way to kind of like merge them all together, because there's no way that you can have anyone else play Han Solo besides Han Solo, because we know Harrison Ford from all these other things, and they all just kind of merge together. So the only way to get someone else to play Han Solo is to get them to be able to play other Harrison Ford actors. Or
Sure.
Characters.
Thank you. Not Harrison Ford actors.
Harrison Ford actors. Does that make Alden a Harrison Ford actor?
Yes.
Any other particular scenes on Corellia that caught your fancy?
I like that when he's caught and talking to Lady Proxima, that he does that whole kind of like manipulation with the thermal detonator that is clearly just a rock.
Bluffing.
Yeah.
It's called bluffing.
And it's not even like a good bluff, because he's making the activation noises with his mouth. I thought that was great.
Yep.
Oh, speaking of Lady Proxima, They didn't have a crawl, but they just kind of had titles come up on the screen.
Yeah, title cards.
And I appreciated that, like in the crawl, important words would be
all caps.
all uppercase. Oh yeah, uppercase. Yeah, thank you. All caps, uppercase. I kept wanting to say upper caps.
It's the same thing.
But I also like that the language that they used to describe things was very reminiscent of A New Hope, where Lady Proxima is referred to as the foul Lady Proxima. Like that is 50s B movie all over it, like 50s sci-fi B movie.
Yeah, it's got that sci-fi fantasy sort of flavoring to it, where adjectives were king. There's a part in the very very beginning of the Corellia scenes that it caught my attention twice. It's like the very first scene of the movie, and it bothered me a little bit because it is Han trying to jumpstart this speeder that he's stealing, and they just brightly flash. They go from pitch black to just the flashing of the eyes, the flashing of the lights and the scene so quickly. And it took, in both times I saw the film, it was just like, why? Why would you do this? But it certainly gets you pumped and ready for that. I enjoyed the whole sewer sequence. I agree with you guys. The making it kind of dirty and gritty really helped sell that this is not a good area. The fact that Lady Proxima is literally a bottom dwelling, sewer creature was fascinating, and that they were hurt by the sunlight too. Mm-hmm. When Han throws the rock through and the sun comes in and everybody scatters. It was
a thermal detonator.
Yeah, thermal detonator. Mm-hmm. A thermal rockinator.
Nailed it.
Yep.
One thing I didn't like about the sequence, the whole opening, is I felt like they used Kira's character basically just give exposition for people that didn't know what was going on. Han's character would say something like, "Oh, we need to go do this," or like, "Oh, like I have this thing," and then she would have this kind of like awkward description of what that was, like a summarizing of what that was.
Sure, I
felt that was it kind of like
a little heavy-handed for you.
Yeah, it felt like weird.
Just weird dialogue.
Yeah, weird dialogue that was like, "Oh, maybe we should explain Lady Proxima, or like maybe we need to explain that hyperfuel is worth money."
Okay, what do you think about that, Mike?
I don't have any opinions about that.
Okay, I
won't go against Khaleesi.
I thought it was
Misa.
I didn't really see it as heavy-handed. Like, I thought it was kind of necessary, and they do a lot of that in Star Wars just in general. So maybe it's just because I'm used to it in this particular movie, but I can see your point there with it being, maybe a little bit. But if you're gonna have that in the movie, the very beginning is good. One of the things that I really enjoyed about having the Han and Kira relationship set up so early in the film is that it really helped you, at least it really helped me, establish that this is a different part in Han Solo's life that I'm looking at. And I was immediately able to kind of put, his relationships with Leia and with the characters from A New Hope kind of out of my head and just be like, all right, this is obviously a different part of Han Solo's life, and I don't need to be making as many connections and judgments about that as maybe I subconsciously thought I had to, because of course he's the same character. But that I liked. I think that the relationship with Kira being set up right away, right at the beginning, is like, bam, great. Like, I can put all that aside and just focus on this relationship, focus on this story that they're going to tell. That kind of covers most of the sewer kind of scenes. And we talked a little bit about the car chase segment, which was cool. I liked establishing that Han was a skillful driver and had the makings for a great pilot. And it was a cool chase scene. It was just fun. And then we talked a little bit about the spaceport and the recruitment center. Did you guys have anything to add on to those scenes at all that really stood out to you, or maybe didn't like so much?
Solo becoming his name, I think, was a key moment in there.
Yeah, how did you feel about that?
I thought it was fine. Obviously I didn't know that was coming, or if that had already been established. So we don't hear about him talking about his name before then, but we kind of find that out at that point. I think it was fine. It was. I'm glad that it was, given to him by somebody else instead of, it being a family name. I think that adds a little bit of flair to the character for sure.
Sure. John, what do you think about that scene?
I think it actually makes Han Solo's character better. In The Last Jedi and basically all the other movies, there's a huge emphasis on the fact that having somewhere you're coming from, like being from something important, by family or by whatever, is what makes you something in this universe. I think that's why everyone's like a little bit disappointed that Rey's or that Kylo says Rey's parents are nobody, because everybody wants her to be somebody's somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Luke in Last Jedi mentions that started to believe the legends of himself because he was a Skywalker.
Right.
And with Solo has this huge legend across the galaxy. Rey knows who he is, like immediately knows who he is. And he doesn't have that pedigree, I guess.
Yeah, he's a self-made man, like literally.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was really cool that he doesn't have somebody's, he's not part of someone's lineage that makes him special. He is special because he's Han Solo.
Right. I agree with you. I think I enjoyed the scene. This is definitely one of those ones where I know people are going to say that they don't like it, and I can understand that viewpoint, because it's a little, unless you get deeper into the thought process behind it like John just did, and I think it was a very good analysis. Just watching it off the top of the head, it's just, some random Imperial recruiter thinking he's being clever by typing in, "Oh, you're by yourself? Well then, you're going to be Han Solo." But all in all, I really enjoyed it, and I thought that was great.
I love that recruitment officer because he reminded me of the recruitment officer in Starship Troopers.
Oh, okay.
When Han comes up and he's like, "I want to be a pilot," and the guy's like, "Well, most guys go into the infantry or go straight into the infantry." It just reminded me of the Starship Troopers guy, where then he pushes away from the desk to reveal he has no legs, and he's like, "Oh, the mobile infantry is what made me the man I am today." And then Johnny Rico's like, "I don't want to do this," sort of thing. So I thought that was kind of a fun thing.
Cool. And we go immediately from that scene into the Mimban assault. And this is where Han eventually meets up with Tobias Beckett and his crew. So, and he meets Chewbacca on Mimban as well.
Awkward.
So, what did you guys think of the whole Mimban kind of sequences?
I think it was good that they established Han as like a renegade early on, even in like he's supposed to be a soldier. He's supposed to, go full force into following orders, and immediately that was gone.
Why am I here?
And it cut 3 years in advance. I just want to know, like, how many minutes did it take for him to be a renegade, and how many years has he been that way?
Right.
Or did he follow orders at the beginning and then started kind of losing that? I'm kind of curious of how that kind of timeline happened, the 3 years that he was there.
He does mention that he was in the Imperial Naval Academy, and that he got kicked out for having a mind of his own.
Right.
So I feel like it started
pretty early, yeah.
I'm still not sure how to feel about that line where he's like, "I got kicked out because I have a mind of my own." And I think it's super corny, but I also think it's just because I've heard it for like months on end now.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was a major trailer.
And there's a number of times in that movie where he mentions like, "I have a mind of my own," or like, "I don't always follow orders," or stuff like that. And I'm like, where do you establish that? You don't need to keep going back.
Know.
And that could just be a result of the reshots or reshoots they had to do.
Sure.
I read somewhere that the script was barely changed when Howard came back, but they did have to reshoot a bunch of stuff. So
yeah, I mean that's an understandable sort of thing.
I love the intro of Tobias.
Yeah, and his unnecessarily spinning pistols all the time.
I think I want to say in our preview our Solo Expectations podcast, I mentioned that it looked like it was just going to be the train job from Firefly.
Right.
And at that point, he reminded me of Captain Mal Reynolds, just kind of like out, like everyone's screaming, running around, like all scared, and he's just in the middle, just taking on everybody one at a time.
That's a good point. Yeah. Another really important thing happens on Mimban here, and it's the first time we see Han and Chewie meet. So Han gets he finds out that Tobias and Val and Rio, who all like helped him through that chaotic battle, end up being not who they say they are. They're actually there to steal a freighter so that they can use it on a job. Han wants to get on board with that. Like Mike said, even though he's part of this military machine, he's still like, nope, I want out. I don't want to be doing this. He tries to get out, tries to blackmail them, and then gets thrown into a pit with a beast, and that beast ends up being Chewbacca. John, what are your feelings about this meeting of these characters?
When we went to go see it at last Thursday at the Chinese Theater in LA,
yep,
we had a much different crowd than when we went to go see it today at our local Edwards. Backtracking real quick. Just before he gets thrown into the pit, he catches up with Tobias Beckett and it's like, hey, I know you guys are cons, so help me out or I'm going to turn you in. And Tobias, who's dressed as a captain, flags down a random lieutenant and says, hey, this guy's a traitor. And the random lieutenant fully believes him because he's a captain. And I just like this idea that Tobias knew that even though he's in a obviously stolen uniform, that
it's got holes in it.
Yeah, it's got massive holes in it, that he knows that the Imperial officer will just follow orders. And I just thought that was ingenious. But when that officer says, all right, we'll throw him to the beast, I knew exactly what that meant. And I heard a lot of people murmuring around us, like, oh, I wonder what the beast is. Who could the beast be? I'm like, it's going to be a Wookiee. Like, come on, guys. Haven't you guys seen the toys? Toys are spoilers, by the way. Don't toys.
Yeah, not always, but sometimes they're false leads. Like, remember that time the Lego released a sand snow speeder? Like a sand-colored snow speeder?
Remember when they released Constable Zuvio?
Yeah, remember when he was a thing that wasn't in a movie?
So, they throw him to the beast.
Right.
And the beast is Chewbacca.
Yep.
We know Chewbacca, he's a Wookiee.
I've heard of those.
He is rather large, and in this version, he is also very muddy dog. And should not be outside. Can't let him inside. But they fight, and I enjoyed the fight because Han realizes that they could kayfabe some fighting and get one over on their Imperial captors, which was funny, I guess. Was it funny, Mike?
I mean, I thought it was funny.
It was funny.
It was kind of like straight out of a wrestling thing. It was they pretended to fight for a while.
There's a part where they're fighting. They damage a pole supporting the beams that the stormtroopers are standing on. Han the angry entices, that's the word I'm looking for, Chewie to attack him, and he spears him like Roman Reigns would do to anyone else.
Right. Mike, what do you think about the Chewbacca Han Solo meet?
Just like John, I knew the beast meant Chewbacca when they said it.
I feel dumb now.
But I did appreciate that they portrayed him as such at the beginning because he's a Wookiee. He's not understood by a lot of people. One of those people that does understand him is Han, and they have that general connection right off the bat, and everybody else around him just thinks of him as a beast. So I thought that ideal set for like the rest of the time that you see Chewbacca, I think it was a good setup there. I think it was really cool seeing them work together like immediately, kind of click immediately, to figure out how to get out of the situation they were in. It didn't take them a while to play as a team, basically. I thought that was really cool. And then they could have went their separate ways, but they turned out to be chained up, and that was for our benefit because they had to stick around for a little bit. So, yeah.
At first I thought it was weird on the first viewing that Chewie kind of stops attacking his dinner solely because Han can speak Sherwook. And now that I think back about it, I think maybe he stopped fighting him because he speaks Sherwook, because it means that this human has gone out of his way to learn this obscure language.
Right. And
so maybe there's a lot of things in this movie where I feel like they put it in there to try to explain things they didn't need to explain. Ian, how'd you feel about Chewie?
How did I feel about Chewie? Well, I kind of feel dumb because you two both were like, hey, we saw it coming a mile away. And I was probably a little bit ahead of the audience in our first viewing, but also not like where you guys were, where it was at the Beast. Oh, it's Chewbacca! Like, I was like, the Beast? oh, I really hope they don't do like a copy of Return of the Jedi. And then he's in the mud pit and with the chain, and I'm like, huh, I wonder where this is going. And it wasn't until I saw the first footprint that I was like, oh, it's totally Chewie. And then after that, the rest of the audience like was like, it's Chewie.
Yeah.
So, but I feel dumb. Like I wasn't expecting that to be where they met for some reason. And I think one of the really interesting things about this is that historically, when we look at Wookiee culture and look at sort of the extended universe info on Wookiees, there's this big emphasis on life debts and how that's like a thing in their culture. That was supposedly how Han and Chewie met. Maybe it's mentioned by Chewbacca in this movie. We don't know because Sherwook's not subtitled. All of his lines, however, were written out. That was an interesting thing in English, so they all have actual meanings in the script. The fact that the life debt or that entire situation was never mentioned in the entirety of the movie was something that was surprising to me. And I liked it a lot because it was one of those things that I think could have been very heavy-handed if they put it in there. But it's more implied if you know about it rather than blatantly said. So maybe that's why like I wasn't sure why they were meeting this way, but I really did enjoy it. I liked that Han spoke some Sherwook. I don't know where he would have picked it up, but I do like that was how they met. I agree with your guys' analysis on the fact that he spoke it, like showed that he took the time to learn it, and it brought the beast back down to an actual person.
Well, I mean, person with quotations.
Wow, John. They end up escaping the pit by doing some sweet wrestling moves. Tobias Beckett's crew is hijacking this ship. John, do you remember the name of the planet that these ice caps are on with this Imperial train?
Varda?
Varda? Okay. Something like that. So we had a couple good character moments with Han, Chewie, Beckett, Val, and Rio Durant, who are the crew that are going to end up doing this job that they needed this ship for. So what do you guys think about that sort of sequence and seeing those characters kind of come together as a crew?
I liked that it didn't go just according to plan right away, and it was a mess because it was kind of a ragtag crew. They joined up at the last minute. Like Val said, this wasn't the plan, and they just kind of had to figure it out as they went. And it didn't go as planned because not everything went according to plan. And then with the end with Han dropping the cargo, clearly wasn't part of the plan, and it was just a mishmash of differing opinions of how it should have went and what should have happened if everything went according to plan. So it was a lot of fun just kind of seeing everything just go wrong and what the reactions were from the rest of the team.
I loved Tobias Beckett in this again when they trip whatever alarm is, sends the range troopers out to start shooting at him. Han and Chewie dive off the side to take cover, and Tobias Beckett just stands where he is and just continues to fire back, and eventually uses an access hatch on the top as cover, which, it's like 2 feet by 2 feet, and he somehow managed to get all of Woody Harrelson behind it to shoot back. And he's just calm and cool. So I thought I really liked that part of the train sequence.
They did a lot of developing Tobias's character, especially in this scene. When we first meet him, you kind of get this sort of, yes, we're villains, but we're a ragtag group, and I'm the leader, and I care about my crew, and I have a good feeling about these guys who are just new coming on. We need the help. Like, you get this sort of caring mentor idea from him, and you believe it, even though we just watched him, like, literally throw Han to a beast. Like, and they were totally prepared to kill him, not like 2-3 hours ago. But you still get this idea that they are the Han Solo archetype that we kind of came to know, But that just continues to go up and down and back and forth with Tobias, especially because Tobias is the only one of his original crew that makes it off this job. Him, Chewie, and Han. Val blows herself up because she gets pinned by Viper droids further down the line, which I thought personally was kind of a waste of that character and Thandie Newton's acting abilities. I mean, there's not much more I can say on that. It's not that this is the movie we got. So, and then Rio Durant, who Rio might have been, like, he might be my favorite secondary character with his forearms and his just quips going back and forth about how, humans can't fly ships because, how do you guys breathe in these helmets? Can't see, can't hear each other.
He was definitely my MVP of this scene, just because like he's so headstrong and just like he's still flying the ship even though clearly he's not in a position to do so.
He got shot in the back like 3 times and he's just like, I'm fine.
And then he finally does when he passes out. And I was a big fan of Rio from the start. It was like, this kid's growing on me when they're pulling out and they find Han and Chewie running back. So yeah, I really liked that character. With how little we got of him, I thought it was really strong and really well developed for what we got.
We also had the appearance of Emphas Nest in this sequence. Now, Emphas Nest, to me, is a really awesome character, but then she kind of drops in cool for me after we see her towards the end of the film. But in this sequence by itself, she and the Cloud Riders are just, they are rad. Going up, and it's kind of interesting, I noticed on the second watching, that some of the speeder bikes they had were kind of junky. Like the
swoops.
The swoops that they had, like, some of the engines were, like, cutting out, like, as they were flying. So they're basically on machines that they are probably only 80% sure work, going headlong into a conflict between Imperials and another group of thieves on a speeding train that also has like some anti-grav stuff going on. So that's pretty balls to the wall crazy. The fighting, that scene where she fights, jumps onto the train and fights Tobias was a very cool action sequence in my opinion. And it was just a fun sort of thing overall. What did you guys think of Emphas Nest in this sequence?
In this sequence, the character was really cool. They keep calling the Cloud Riders Marauders and pirates, and that's like exactly the feeling you get when she jumps down and starts chopping away with her vibro axe, or I think it's a vibro axe. But I had the same thing with you, that towards the end of the movie, I feel like they diminish the idea of Emphas Nest.
Yeah, I agree.
So I have no problems with the actress that played her.
No, not at all.
It was a weird reveal.
It was a character issue. It wasn't anything to do with the acting or anything.
I like the idea that it wasn't just them versus the train and them versus the Imperial forces. It turned out to be this third party that kind of screwed it up for both teams.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool that, it didn't go according to plan, not because of the enemy, but because of just some other people that showed up and screwed it up for everybody. So I thought that was a really fun take and really fun way to kind of introduce those characters as being kind of the pests that are in the thorn in the side of Tobias Beckett.
Well, the reason that they are doing this whole train heist in the first place is that they are there to get refined hyperfuel. Now, refined hyperfuel is apparently a very precious resource. The crime syndicates are warring over it. That was all mentioned in the title cards. The thing that Han and Kira were trying to get off planet with to bribe their way off was a vial of refined hyperfuel, and this is an entire train car full of it. And it kind of blows up because Emphas and Han, they both have their ships hooked on to this crate of refined hyperfuel, and they're heading towards a mountain, and they can't split up. And Han decides that it's worth risking the loss of this game of chicken. He has to let go of the cargo. Chewbacca and Tobias are holding onto a line, and as soon as they let go, Emphasis speeder bike can't handle it. It goes up goes right into the mountainside and blows it up, which is admittedly a really cool looking explosion. And we go to find out that Tobias and crew were not warring over this hyperfuel for themselves or their own profit. They actually owed somebody, and that somebody is Dryden Voss, who is the head of the crime syndicate.
Well, he is a boss.
He is a boss, the boss that we know of.
Crimson Dawn.
Of the Crimson Dawn, thank you. I kept wanting to say Crimson Raiders, and that is a different thing. He's the head of the Crimson Dawn. So
he's a boss.
He is
not the head of Crimson Dawn.
Yeah, I would argue.
They mention many times that he has a boss.
That's fair.
That he's but they go like, "Do you know who he works for?" Sort of thing.
Yeah, that's fair. I was gonna make an argument saying like, but not everybody knows who he works for. But he specifically says to Tobias, "You know who I work for."
Yeah.
So
you're in the right ballpark.
Yeah, he is a boss, and he is the head of the Crimson Dawn that we see up until the very end of the film. Tobias basically says, hey, I have to go talk to this guy, and hopefully he won't murder my face for failing him. But Han and Chewie agree that the money is worth the risk, and they go to see Dryden Voss on a ship.
It was really similar to in The Last Jedi when we saw Finn in the casino world, where Woody Harrelson has that line, none of these people are your friends. You see just a bunch of debutantes and upper, the rich folk, and these are just kind of a couple ragtag swindlers that just don't kind of belong, and you kind of get that dichotomy, and then in comes the person that connects everything, which is Amelia Clark's character, and then it just kind of shakes it up from there. But the intro of it was really good, and kind of brought me back to that moment in Last Jedi, and then you get to kind of the meat and potatoes of the scenes when you get Amelia Clark back, and then she just kind of drives it from there.
It turns out that she is Dryden Voss's top lieutenant.
Right.
Which is very convenient for Han. John, how about you? What did you think of these scenes?
Every Star Wars has, for whatever reason now, has that cantina sort of ish theme to it. Like,
yeah.
You go to a place where we see new things and like how a different culture is in a bar, basically. This movie had it several times.
It's true.
But it's the nature of the scoundrel lifestyle. You're always going to be in kind of shady places. I didn't really get a prequel vibe I didn't really get a Last Jedi Canto Bight feel to it. I got more of a prequel vibe to it.
Okay.
Which I liked because it showed that they weren't afraid to show something kind of prequel-y in it. I feel like a lot of the time Disney tries to stay away from that aspect, or at least Lucasfilm in general tries to stay away from the prequels. I like that there kind of seems to be a recent push to kind of bring them back into the fold.
So by that logic, it'll take just merely 10 years for people to get over the things they don't like about The Last Jedi.
No, we're gonna need another trilogy for people to hate on, and then be like,
okay.
Well, at least in the prequel trilogy or the sequel trilogy, blah blah blah, and because
it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that scene didn't remind you of the prequels, and that, Mike, you compared it to the Canto Bight sequence, because the one thing I hear about that Canto Bight sequence the most from a lot of people is that Canto Bight reminded them of the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is kind of interesting how you two had differing feelings on it.
I did like how there were some familiar alien races in Dryden's ship.
Yes.
I also enjoyed that there were clearly Imperial officers just running around
in full uniform.
I love that idea that we've always seen the Empire as the villains, and in this one we don't really see them as the villains in the movie. We see them just as kind of like the status quo law enforcement, and we even see the Imperial gate ticket.
Oh yeah, on Corellia.
Steward. Yeah, clearly just like I'll take a bribe. That's fine. and then you see these Imperial officers just hanging around in a gangster's house.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was a neat sequence with just getting to see the underbelly and how it reminded me of Jabba's palace trying to look like Canto Bight, you know? Like it had that same seedy sort of feel, but it had the glamour facade around it. And Paul Bettany as Dryden Voss, I thought was really good, which is interesting, seeing as he was a recast because the original actor couldn't make it back to do reshoots. So I liked his character a lot. I thought he definitely had that sort of, when I'm out in public and I'm the face and I can get something out of you, I'm going to be polite and nice. But the minute you do something to piss me off, I'm going to stab you with these weird knives.
Yeah, like he
was very menacing.
When Tobias and Chewie and Han show up, Dryden knows that he's going to kill these guys because they failed him.
Right.
And he knows that there's nothing that they can do to make it up. But he's still like kind and courteous to them until he brings them into the back room.
And even at that point, like he's like, I'm going to murder you. You need to give me a reason not to do it. Like, he's still giving him that chance, which is you know, this movie does a good job of taking things that we normally just kind of lump together into these are the bad guy categories and showing us different facets of that in different characters.
Well, there's not a lot of quote unquote just good guys in this movie. There's a whole lot of people that just do bad things, and so you have to kind of break up the bad guy into different people and then give them different traits. But I think Paul Bettany does a great job at becoming the ultimate bad guy in this movie, in a movie about bad guys.
Yeah, I agree. What did you guys think of Kira reappearing in this sequence? Like, to me, it was I really liked her character. Storytelling wise, it was one of the most like convenient things, which, I mean, it didn't feel negative. Like, it's weird to point that out and then say it wasn't a negative thing for me. It's just like, oh, this is a thing that happened.
I'm gonna say Star Wars is filled with convenient things.
You know what? And that's probably why it doesn't feel too bad.
In the regular trilogy, everybody knows everybody's everybody.
Which brings us into the introduction of Donald Glover's Lando Calrissian.
Therm Scissor Punch.
Who?
He's the lobster.
He has a name, yeah.
His name is Therm Scissor Punch.
Is that right?
And he is the best character of this movie.
We are introduced to Lando in a gambling hall playing Sabacc. And Han gets it into his head that instead of just going up to him and asking him to be their pilot, that he can win the ship off of him. So he sits down at the table and they begin to play. Now, this was a fun sequence. What did you guys think about it?
Yeah, like you said, it was a lot of fun. Donald Glover just made the character...
Cut that out later.
Okay. Yeah, Donald Glover was just really added a lot, and he just had his own kind of style, and yeah, it was a lot like Billy D. Williams, but you know, he took a lot of that and just kind of added to it, and it was just a fun way of introducing the two in a seedy area that both of them you would expect them to be. Bluffing their way and just kind of bragging their way into this one scene where they both think they have the upper hand and they're both definitely for sure going to win this thing, and one of them does and one of them is kind of naive and thinking that he does. So I thought it was a really cool like battle of wits between the two, and you just kind of expect that out of those two whenever you come to think of those two characters.
It definitely felt like Han and Lando.
Right.
Like, they felt like the characters that they were supposed to be. And I like that Lando had all of this sort of swagger and this, I'm the smooth guy, but he still had to cheat at the game in order to win.
Yeah.
He had the card hidden up his sleeve. The location was cool too. Like it felt like a speakeasy gambling hall. Like it was a very crowded sort of affair, and everybody's kind of really intent in watching the game. We got to see some new and old aliens at the table, which again, John, you mentioned before how it was good to see some of the old, the original trilogy aliens make a comeback, and which has been a complaint of mine in the new trilogy, is that I wanted to see more of that galaxy that we know mixing with the new stuff, and they did a very good job of it in this particular film.
Card game scenes bore me to death.
Okay.
Casino Royale was so boring.
That was like 45 minutes of cards, though.
I cannot remember anything about that movie. So I'm glad they didn't make it this like high stakes, high stress, John is falling asleep because people are playing cards moment.
Right.
Where they moved through it pretty quickly, and it was mostly just Han and Lando trading clever quips.
Right.
And then throwing cards at each other, which is how I play poker specifically.
It's
my
effective.
personal style, yeah. I did like that Lando was cheating the whole time.
Yep.
To me, that makes his character even more interesting. Like Han later becomes, he's like a legendary smuggler and whatever, and you kind of see that like some of that might not be as accurate as people think it is.
But everything
Right.
they say about him is true.
Oh snap! He did say that, but he also did cheat. So that's awkward.
So if someone called him a cheater, does that make it true?
Well,
I mean, I
yeah.
guess it would be.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Lando wins the game through nefarious means. Han has a big pout about it.
He lost his ship.
Yeah. He lost the
ship
ship
that he doesn't
didn't
Right.
have.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Oh, and I'm not sure if this is the part, the ship that Han mentions, I believe, I'm not 100% on this, is the same model as the Ghost in Star Wars Rebels.
Oh, I know that ship.
Yeah. See Kira's kind of influence and why she is there take a hold here, where she just goes up to Lando and says, hey, please do this thing for us. Take us to Kessel. Lando agrees for a cut of the pay.
So I have a theory on this.
Okay, what's your theory?
So he agrees to the cut. He says he says he wants 50%, and Tobias says you'll get 25. He's like, okay, I'll take 40. You'll get 25. He's like, okay, I'll take it. And then he takes them down to where the Falcon is, and he's like, I like to keep my ship locked up. But for some reason, they have to cut into the fence of the place he's keeping his ship locked up. And then they get down there, and Tobias mentions that, it also looks like you have some ground clamps, and they've impounded your ship. I'm 90, or not even 90, I'm 100% sure at this point the only reason he's agreed is because he knows that Tobias has experience with taking these locks off ships.
And he's going to take the price down anyway, so that's why he started high.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the only reason he joined is because he knew that this guy's going to be able to get his ship out of impoundment.
I can totally see that.
Because there are several times in it where he's like, he wants this high cut, and Tobias is like, it's not going to happen. He's like, okay, I'll relent because this seems like a good idea or whatever. Especially when he's like, oh, Tobias, don't you have experience with this? Tobias is like, it's going to be another 5% off your cut, and he goes, I don't like it, I don't agree with it, but I'll whatever he says, like,
but
I'll accept.
Yeah, but I accept. And it's only because this is the only person who's gonna be able to get his ship off the planet
now
out of lock.
We also see L3. We get introduced to L3, which is Lando's. I hesitate to say it's Lando's droid because she
doesn't belong to anyone.
Yeah,
she is very independent.
She's a strong, independent, kind of beige-ish droid who don't need no man.
Right. She's a interesting character. I enjoyed her. She's all about droid rights and like freeing droids from slavery,
right.
essentially. And the first time we see her, she's like screaming at a BattleBots droid
She's screaming
fight
at Clint
operator.
Howard, which I find he's probably gets used to. These people screaming at him.
Right.
And during that scene where you see the droid battles, all I wanted to shout was, "Let's kick some bot." And I figured it, no matter where I was, it would be inappropriate to yell that. Because I think me, 3 other people might get that reference.
L3 is a very interesting character. Star Wars, we see a lot of independent droids. With the exception of maybe R2-D2, who communicates exclusively in beeps, most of those droids still at the end of the day are just doing what they're told. L3 is like, she's a breath of fresh air in that. Like, she's doing stuff because she wants to, because she likes hanging out with Lando. And she makes a big huff about it, too, which is fantastic. By the way, the scene where they're unlocking the clamps to the Falcon, I feel like that is the most Billy D. Williams portrayal that Donald Glover does in this entire film, where he's just like, oh, this is unacceptable. I'm definitely going to have a word with somebody about this. Like, just I was hearing and seeing Empire Strikes Back Lando as he was doing that part, which I enjoyed in that instance. I said in our car ride discussion.
Yeah, there were a lot of parts in the movie that I felt that Donald Glover was playing a character of Lando, or a character of Billy D more than he was playing Lando. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I had no problem seeing him as Lando in that. And even saying that, I don't think there's anyone else they could have casted to even come close.
Right.
So I just thought that, yeah, like you said, that there's a few times where he was being, I feel like he was being too much Billy D playing Lando in something that isn't Star Wars.
Which is a cool thing.
Yeah,
like,
my
you gotta
train of thought broke again.
hold a legacy character, in such high regard. I like when actors do that.
I thought his like quote unquote accent slipped here and there whenever he did certain scenes, or like you said, that was one in particular was very much Billy D. Williams, and where in some cases maybe he was just Donald Glover for a little bit, or maybe he was just trying to be Lando Calrissian and not really nailing it. So there were definitely some inconsistencies with him, but yeah, his character, his lines were particularly good, and I thought his delivery was pretty good as well, and here and there.
Well, gentlemen, we've really gotten to halfway point in the film. We talked a little bit about the Kessel Run itself earlier, but there is a lot more to talk about in terms of Solo, and I don't think we can fit it all in this episode today. So what do you guys...
I think we could sum up the rest of the movie in like 10 minutes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Not 8.
8?
8.
We got to round down.
So if you're here listening to this and you haven't already seen the movie...
spoilers.
Yeah, I mean, you missed
Nailed
the
it
warning.
with the spoiler alert, John.
Well, guys, how do you feel about taking a break and coming back in another episode to finish off our Han Solo discussion?
I think that's a good idea.
I don't like it, but I'll agree to it.
All right. Fantastic. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to this episode of Hoth Topics. We had a great time at the Solo premiere up in LA. Had a good time seeing it with Mike, and we're going to continue this discussion another time. If you would like to get in touch with us, ask us any questions, have any comments about the movie, or any other Star Wars comments in general, want to let us know how you think we're doing, please give us a email at hothpod@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us at hothpod on Twitter. And you can find us at our website, hothtopicspodcast.com. I think that's it. Anything to add, guys, before we close out?
Solo was fun.
I got nothing right now, since we'll be
back here very shortly.
Yeah, chronologically, we're going to be back here in about 20 minutes to record the rest of this. But yeah,
awesome.
Nothing until next time.
Cool. Well, I've been Ian.
I've just said what I am.
That's John.
Mike's here as well.
And that is Mike. Thank you very much, everybody. We will see you next time.
Hoth Topics. These characters are going to keep showing up no matter what.
Right.
At least it's not like Marvel, or like, I'm not gonna say Marvel, but like comic books where like characters die off and then they immediately come back in the next episode with head wounds.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're just like, oh, I'm perfectly alive, but I was missing an arm. You know.
I'm gonna regret that sentence when we
get more time travel.
Yeah, when I think about Star Wars a little bit more and remember that a lot of characters come back from death, and some of them are dead and they come back because they're ghosts. And so my statement is wrong.
It made sense until you thought about it. Yeah. Don't worry about
Star Wars.
That's Star Wars. That is Star Wars. Please stop, because I have other things to say to you that don't need to be recorded.
What you could say to John, you could say to the public.
No,
we don't keep secrets.
What I want to go over how we're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Stop the damn thing. John, it's there. I can see it.
You didn't even look at the thing. You just...
He's not even
pretending to press something.
He's not touching the mouse. He's not touching the keyboard. He's just...
Yikes.
Dude.
Hit something.
This is not helpful.
And...